Welcome to the Get Over Yourself podcast, where we explore the power of mindset, success, and authentic stories. Join us as we delve into life experiences that challenge traditional thinking patterns, providing valuable insights and inspiration for personal growth. Get ready to embark on a transformative journey as we analyze those stories and uncover the keys to unlocking your true potential. It's time to reshape your mindset and embrace a new path towards success. Get ready to be inspired and empowered right here on Get Over Yourself. Let's get right into it. Well, thank you for joining us today. My name is LaSharis, and I'm from the Get Over Yourself podcast, one of the co-authors for the book, Get Over Yourself, How to Move Without the Ball. And today we have a very special guest and come to be a very special friend over the last couple of years. We have Marie Wesselhoft. I want to say that right. Marie Wesselhoft. And Marie is the president and co-founder of Zellos DX, which is a neurodegenerative disease biomarker research facility. I don't know.
We're making a lot of things there. Blood tests for brain disease. How's that?
That's awesome, Marie. And you know what? We're going to get into that. So just a short little bio of Marie. Marie has spent the last 15 years involved in the Southern Arizona bio startup community. Currently, again, she's the president of Zellos DX. She's a mentor in resident at the University of Arizona, and she was previously the director of U of A Center of Innovation Business Incubator. For 20 years, she worked at Baxter, where one of her positions were general manager of the diagnostic business unit, among other positions. And in her early career, she was a hospital laboratory director for one of the Humana facilities in Chicago healthcare market. And I don't know if we ever told you this, but we're from Illinois. I didn't know you worked in Chicago or that you had even been in the area. So we'll start off with, how did you get to Chicago? Are you from Chicago?
I am from Chicago.
You know
I know. Can you believe it? That's the good thing about Chicago, because a lot of people either were from there or they know somebody that they're close to in Chicago. So yes, I'm truly a Midwest person, and I didn't leave the Midwest until I was 50. So I was born in Iowa. And then we came to Chicago, and, I only remember Chicago. So I was there till 50 and then moved down to Tucson, Arizona. So, yep. So at another time, I'll have to hear about what you did in Chicago. Thanks for the introduction.
No problem. And could you tell us a little bit more about what Zellos DX does?
Yeah. And even before I jump into Zellos, I'd like to just share two more things about our bio that wasn't necessarily in my professional bio. And I have a fabulous husband, and I have 2 kids. So I just wanted
and I'm sorry, because I can leave Chuck out.
All right. So I brought him back in. There we go.
Yes, absolutely.
So anyway, what do we do at Zellos? So, let me back up and just to kind of get to Zellos. When I describe my life, professional life, I describe it as a Venn diagram, three circles, and they overlap in the middle. And my Venn diagram, I have always had a passion for science and technology. So always, well, not always, but a long time. And then my second Venn diagram is I fell in love during my first job in healthcare with healthcare. I worked in a hospital. It was in a clinical lab. It gave me an opportunity to combine my scientific love with tying it to the patient, tying it to the clinician. So those are 2 of my Venn diagrams. But then the third one that came to be over time is I really love business. So imagine when you take that Venn diagram and you take technology and you take healthcare's at the top, right? And you take healthcare and then you take business. Out of that comes what really guided my life always. I didn't know it. It only makes sense retrospectively, but since this book is about the 4 quarters, now that I know it's basketball, the 4 quarters, it really has been a part. It looked different in every one of them, but so knowing that that was my passion, I had started out in healthcare, as you mentioned, and then moved in 20 years in industry because I felt like the hospital was too small. You could only affect one patient at a time. Not that I didn't like that or love that, and that gave me my passion, but I wanted to go out and make a bigger difference. And so Baxter/Cardinal, they were many names over those 20 years, bought and sold. That gave me the underpinning for knowing the market, knowing business, knowing technology, and all of that. But then at the end of 20 years, it was like, where does innovation come in?
Right.
And so I said, I need to move left on the innovation curve. I need to figure out this earlier stage stuff. So we're bringing new things into the market to affect the larger world. So the last part of my life has always been about early stage stuff and entrepreneurial stuff. So I relate to the book. So back to the book, which is the most important thing. I think that being an entrepreneur, particularly at this stage of my life, it allows me to take what I've learned, but yet really, move the needle. Even though it's a small needle, ultimately it's going to have a big impact. So that's kind of a couple of comments that I will say. And that led me to Zelos DX, because lo and behold, there I was back in my laboratory stuff. And somebody said to me, there aren't blood tests for brain disease. And I said, what? What do you mean there aren't blood tests? I'm sure my catalog back when I worked at Cardinal, the catalog's this thick, right? I'm sure there's a blood test in there for brain. And I went in there, and it was because it was all online, but I looked it up and I said, I'll be darned. There isn't one. Okay, we got to go get this figured out. And that's what we had a team. We went through the University of Arizona McGuire Center for Entrepreneurship, because my undergrad was in science, and then my business degree never even taught me how to spell the word entrepreneur. And I thought, enough of this big business stuff. I went back to the University of Arizona Entrepreneurship Program, retooled for early stage stuff, and I haven't left it. And that's how the company came to be, from the team that took it through it. They were all younger and had to go off and get real jobs. And, but they left it in my hands, and they're still very involved. But we launched the company from that.
Awesome. So what quarter were you in when you became an entrepreneur and you started? What quarter were you in then?
Yeah, back to the book. So the book takes it in quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. Quarter 3, I would say, toward the end of quarter 3, beginning of quarter 4.
That's interesting, because in quarter 3, I guess most times in quarter 3, a person is thinking, it might be too late for me to do something that big. You know what I mean? Or
that small. Entrepreneurial is very small.
Yeah.
So, that was probably the harder thing, going from big business into, you talk to as an entrepreneur, you talk to some key opinion leader in a customer discovery interview, and then you have to go wash the toilets, so you have to be able to think big and be very humble. And that fit for quarter 3, because I think the first half is kind of growing into yourself, and the second half is growing out of yourself. And so, that ability to be okay and be humble with whatever fit for me, it was okay. I don't, to me, that's the one thing about Eric's book. I get the quarter thing, but that was one of my comments that I made note of. The quarters fit, but they aren't always chronological. True. You can have a quarter, you can have a family first quarter, second quarter, third quarter. Mm-hmm. You can have professional, and they might be all different. But for me, we moved out here at 50. And so that was when that's what I consider my third quarter, beginning into my fourth quarter. Now I'm clearly in fourth. I'm out of denial. Anyway.
So when you were going into that third quarter, back to what you said, when you said there has to be of letting go of this and welcoming something totally new, what was that shift like mind-wise? Because you're going to be meeting new friends, you're moving to a whole different place. You're working in a same type of environment, but from a different level, and it's a lot of change. So explain how you shifted your mindset and how you prepared yourself to go into that third quarter.
So the first word that I think of is humble.
Okay.
Had to humble up. When you work for a larger company or a larger organization, an institution, it could be a university, it could be the military, it could be big corporate world, part of your bravado comes from the group you're a part of. It's a bit hubris, right? And so you going into an entrepreneurial environment, you have to get small. And so with that comes lessons in humility. And so that would be what I would say. But how do you prepare was your second question. And for me, I knew I needed to retool. And when I came down here, I interviewed a number of people. I was doing customer discovery, even though I didn't call it that. That's what we call it in entrepreneur land. I interviewed, I went to there's a book of companies. What are the companies in each geography? And you open it up, and I went to the bio, and there were two big bio companies, and the third largest company had 12 employees. I thought, what am I going to do? If I don't want to be in those top two, one's healthcare and one was Ventana at the time, Roche. It's like, okay, that's a good lesson in humbling up. And so after my customer discovery, I learned who I needed to know. I needed to know the Flynn Foundation. I needed to know Critical Path Institute. I needed to get hooked up with the University of Arizona. And out of that, I went through the McGuire Center for Entrepreneurship. It taught me how to retool and think about launching businesses as opposed to, I kept, when I'd see 2,000 in Baxter land, that was 2 million. They just rounded off the last three zeros. in entrepreneur land, it's 2,000, and I'd always be switching them up.
Yeah.
I'd say, $2 million, and they'd say million. It's like it's thousand. So it was hard, but I was ready, because it doesn't matter how you feel. You got to get over it. Get over yourself. There we go.
Right.
It was a getting over yourself. And so I retooled with Humana. I got involved with our University of Arizona incubator. There I was, and the person left, and I could step into that role after going through the McGuire Center for Entrepreneurship. And I got hooked into the ecosystem. I love bio. So it was all about how can we make Arizona stronger from a bio perspective. And the Flynn Foundation had their roadmap, and
Right.
I thought, I got it. Okay, I read the roadmap. I know where I need to jump on and see if I can make a difference. And then out of that, I was introduced to our own company, and we founded it. And so that's kind of how
Okay.
I retool.
So, I can't get away with asking this question. So, as a woman, how has the challenges of what the world says about the equity gaps, capital, being able to raise children, being married while you're building all of this, how did that play? What were the challenges, and how were you able to overcome them?
Yeah. And that was something that I faced in quarter 2, 3, and 4. So, not as a kid, never felt that. So in my mind, I had fabulous parents. And they never let me know I might have to address that, because it was not there. They didn't feel it. I was a part of planning the trips. I was a part of driving when I was a kid. The expectations, I'm so fortunate. You only know retrospectively how fortunate you were as a kid when you find out other people didn't have that.
Right.
We had two wonderfully loving parents, and my dad was just like all over the science. So what a nice mixture. It's like putting Yahtzee things in, throwing it out. It's like, wow, I like this. I got 3 6s, So anyway, but then you hit your second half and you realize, okay, maybe that's how it was okay in the family, but it's
Right.
not necessarily. And so, you know what? I just stepped above it. In my mind, it's not like ignoring it, but there was no reason to be bound by what other people were going to bind me to. The conceptions of maybe I can do or this or can't do this. I can do this. I knew I could do this. Anything is possible, and that's just was always my mantra. So I didn't get caught up in all that. And I had to think about that. And one way you overcome it, it's one thing just to chat about it, but one way you overcome it is, you know what? You need to work 5 times as hard.
Mhm.
So if something's due tomorrow, no one in corporate land doesn't respond to results. So
Right.
if results is going to be the milestone I'm going to get measured on, I'll get it done and I'll overachieve. And so how could they deny that? They still can push back on it. So I probably developed too much. It's never good enough. I'm going to try harder, 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 because I need to balance that now at this
Right.
point of my life. So overcompensating would be one. The balance with family was a clear thing. We adopted our 2 children and we
Mhm.
adopted them later in life. We were older. And that was hard. That was really a balance. But that's why, I reminded you in the bio that you hadn't mentioned Chuck.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have a fabulous partner and he's was very active too, but between the two of us, we figured it out. And so you know, balance was key and but at the heart of most things, overcompensating, balance, but I have a very strong spiritual. I got that from both my mom and dad. And so when you have a strong spiritual core, it isn't, it's bigger than you are. I wouldn't say get over yourself. That's not my thing. It's
Mhm.
larger. It's larger than that. And so I tried to live largely. And I know that's probably not grammatically correct, but you know what I mean.
No,
Bigger,
I know what
filling
you mean.
filling a bigger space.
The
And
mission is bigger than just you. There's a lot more you're supposed to be doing.
right. Yeah. And it's
Absolutely.
been a pain. It was a pain. You get over when they downsize, I got downsized, and
Mhm.
you knew you didn't know somebody, but whatever. You just stayed there and then you figured out what your next role would be and you went on. So there's always a workaround.
Okay. Let's talk about Chuck.
I
How long have you
love
all
it.
been married?
So Chuck was 36, I was 32. So we've been married. You'd think I would know this number, 36 years. How's that? I should have that right on top of my head.
Well, you know
19,
what? I noticed that as you get
1986.
older, you start forgetting. Like I sometimes forget my age. I'm like, wait a minute, am I?
Right. So anyway, yep, we got married in 1986 and he was an engineer studying to be an attorney.
Oh wow.
And I met him and I thought, oh my God, I love this guy. He can keep me in check, and so I thought this one's gonna work. And so we got married and it was fun. He was still studying, so he was a student and working, and he had gone back to school for his law degree. And so it was great. And then we're talking 8 years after that is when we adopted. So we got married, he finished school, we did a little traveling. He worked downtown Chicago, I worked at Baxter, and then we adopted the kids and then stayed there for a little while longer and moved down here then in 2004 and loved Tucson ever since.
That's awesome. I'm going to ask you a question because this question is a challenge that I see most married couples go through as the husband is in working, he's in school, he's going to become an attorney or be in that industry. You are well up there, you're directors at organizations. You're starting your own companies, and we call those power couples, especially if they're able to work together, such as you and Chuck. But what do you think that you all did to be able to manage that? Because as we know, some people, when they're married, you could be, one person might be competitive, and then when you're at work and you're competing, that might come home, and just the energy. And so that's a lot of things that couples nowadays struggle with, because women are in the workforce, they do make money, sometimes more than their husbands. And if, going back to the book, you have a traditional mindset, those things might affect you as a man, and those things as a woman bring forth many challenges that could be negative for you. So how do you think you all worked through those?
That's a good question. It's not an easy question, because I haven't thought about that. So I would say the first thing is, we were older. We had started to get over ourselves. Okay. Being 36 and 32, I know that's not old now. I really don't think that's old, but that those same needs weren't there. Chuck would have been fine to live by himself all his life. That was the hard thing. Chuck had to give that up. He was like, oh no. And, so I think maturity would be one. I think we're both kind of very old souls. And so, it wasn't, the ego was not a big issue. It was more of a time balance. It's more of a respect.
Right.
Respect is the key word, because we respected one another, what they were doing, and we respected the family as a unit, and figured out what's the best thing. Now that was hard, because I traveled a lot and Chuck didn't. And so, but he had a train ride an hour downtown. So how do you have kids? Somebody's out of town. You are an hour away, even at the best.
Right.
So we had au pairs live with us. So we had an international student come and live with us. So we had 8 years where they would come and be with us, so that somebody lived in our house. They were a part of our household. They kind of rotated in and out like a teacher would rotate in and out. And they came from another country. And then the last of their 12 months, they spent going around the US in month 13. So that is how we managed it, so that there was always a presence with the kids. Not that was easy on them. We find out now that was tougher on them than we ever thought. It was an easy solution for us. Maybe from an attachment side, not so the best for them. So we got to live through those things. But that's how it was managed. Respect, humility, that's kind of the how, and we didn't have to learn that. We had to continue to cultivate it, because both of us had really good fundamental not fundamentalists, but good infrastructure kind of values. We were raised with good values. And that was kind of even from both of our upbringings. So given that, we truly married into good families, and then have tried to perpetuate that. So that's how it's hard to balance work. And if there's an area that I will say, I regret, is not always being able to be present for everything. That balance is really, really hard. And so, but those regrets come later. And I've had people that say, well, regret's a tough word, but maybe you need to think of a better word. You need to be more specific about that. So anyway, that's how I would answer that.
Okay. I remember whenever you first read the book, because this is your second time going through it. But I remember when you first read the book, and I think you were on a plane, you were getting ready to travel. And you called Eric, or Eric called you, and you had a conversation about how inspired you were, but how it was fitting Tell me about that, if you can take yourself back there.
That's hard. I don't even know that I remember that. But I
I
don't even,
remember.
I love it. I love it. See, that's good. That's why I'm working on brain biomarkers for my fourth quarter. Anyway, there's so many things that I was inspired, second time through. The nice thing that I always do is I underline, in my book all over. So when there's an aha, it gets underlined. So when I went back through the second time, I went to all my little underlines. So it's hard to know which one, because there were so many. But I have to say, let me start with, I really do like the how to move without the ball, or whatever the
Yeah.
darn word is. I'm not sports, and so, but I got that visual. And that was perfect. But okay, I think I know why I called Eric. It's because I finally understood Eric.
Okay.
When I read his book, I said, oh my God, now I get why Eric's the way he is. He lives this. It was kind of like, okay, I had to read this book to understand the
to know who I've been friends with.
Underpinnings of what drives this man, because he is, and I knew him longer than I knew you. So, I hope you don't mind me focusing
no.
on him. But, he always creates a vision that's so large, and I am so specific. So he brings a big umbrella. He calls himself whatever, this portfolio entrepreneur. And I thought, I can hardly handle one. How can he handle a portfolio of them? And so he lives that way. He lives that way, creating a vision and holding it for people to then either decide they're going to be a part of it and come along, or not, but he holds that, and then he believes it. It doesn't get done unless everybody benefits from it. And so as I started to read his philosophy, it's like, okay, this is where it comes from. This is what his beginnings look like. This is how he faced them and went beyond, and how he developed a philosophy. And I see it manifested in however he portrays. I don't know what quarter he thinks he's in, but
we're getting ready to go to third. We're at the end of half. We're figuring out the end of half.
Okay, good. So I would say I got it, and that's why I called him. So it wasn't any one thing. It was like, okay, this was the inspiration behind this man, and I need to better understand his tool set.
Right. And when you speak about being humble and how you had to humble yourself, we've been married now for 23 years. So there's moments of humbling, and you have to kind of be present, or you will miss those moments and miss opportunity. But that in itself is a fight, outside of all the other challenges that we have, because the world is turning into something completely different, and everybody's value system is just not the same, and to say, oh, I'm going to put all of these other people before I put myself, people are like, what are you talking about? Why would you be doing something like that? But coming from the understanding that if you do these things, you get so much more back than you would if you did just
the solo thing. Yeah, no, it leverages. It's called leverage. That's exponential. You get exponential impact. So it isn't just about helping others, because when everybody gains, then everybody moves forward. So yeah, and this was somebody who lived that. And, coming from the corporate land, and even from survival entrepreneurial land, things don't always reinforce that. I mean, it innately, but you don't, but Eric lives it. And so that is probably the biggest lesson I got from this book is to understand what makes up a person who lives that way and how they got to do it, and how you can pick some of those things that might be applicable to make our life, to make my life better. And so he definitely did. Did
Yeah.
I answer your question, or did
Yeah,
I skirt it
no, 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 no.
entirely?
You answered the question. You answered the question. How would you say you going into or in the fourth quarter? You're in the fourth quarter. What's the ball for you? What type of things in your life, would you say would be the ball, and how are you? What does look going into overtime? How do I visualize your ideal self? Like, what does that look like?
Right, right. That's really a good question. So I have a couple of things that I could say. What does moving without the ball look like? But before, I'd like to say what squarely puts me in for chapter 4, whatever,
Quarter
phase
four.
4, quarter 4, because then you can understand. So context. In the last 3 years, I've lost 7 people.
Mm.
So you begin to be the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, you have to deal with grief and loss. And, my sister died last year, my dad died, so, a couple of aunts, a couple of cousins, several cousins last year, 3 people that
Yeah.
were out of sync. We're talking 60 to 65. It's not quite time for them, my
Yeah,
sister
right.
included.
Mm-hmm.
So 7 people, I've had to really do some soul searching, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And so then you say, okay, that puts me squarely in some camp, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because for the most part, there's nobody left in my family, and so what? So as I move forward, how am I going to step into that
Mm-hmm.
and really have it? There's a phrase, one of my really good friends that's gone through cancer like 3 times says, I need to sign each day.
Mm-hmm.
And so what does signing each day look like? And it's less about doing. I mean, I'm still doing. My sister used to say, our who is in our do. And if our do changes, our who changes, and so you can't be, it's not about us doing. It's about, are you really sure that those around you, what are you investing? No kidding around. What are you investing? And that might be your kids, it
Mm-hmm.
might be your friends, it might be students. We in the last X number of years, we always have a student here from U of A. It's about creating a culture where you've got the old and the new. And so what are you going to do differently in fourth quarter? So someone else, it's kind of Eric's umbrella, but it doesn't look quite like that. It's like, what are you going to do to have your fourth quarter look different than the regular way? I'm just going to age out and I'm going to sit at home and blah, blah, blah. And how can that bring lift? And so that's what I'm working on. So to move the ball, though, then to your second question, which is, what does the ball look like? We're, as an entrepreneur, you're always raising money.
Yes.
And you're, sometimes you have it and sometimes you don't. But either way, so you have to cut back. And so we're in the middle of an expense reduction, cash conservation. How is that for a nice word? Cash conservation mode. Well,
That sounds nice.
I know.
Than what the real picture is.
So, because it's not like, the main people get paid anything, but these young people need to live. And so how can, during cash conservation, not look like you got your hand out with a cup, but have still vision of what it is going to be, when you're still not even quite to market. So now, having said that, so making sure, and that's where equanimity comes in. You don't go up, you don't go down, you just boop. And so that's what has to be. And I can't stop. I have to pause and put a little parenthesis
Okay.
because Eric and you with Movement Interactive were our first revenue.
I remember that. I remember we were at your house for the for the crab boil. Chuck did an awesome job. You guys did an awesome job. But yeah, I remember that because the
We
control.
were able to bill. Betty, our controller, was there. I
Yeah.
says, really? We can invoice you? So to be able to say, here's a partner, number one, here's our partner. This is what the business model might look like. And lo and behold, this is what happens. We actually got to bill. We partnered, and then it resulted in a grant, and that grant resulted in the ability to perform some services, and those services allowed us to do our first billing. And so that was a major milestone for us. So thank you for that. And that's just an example, because you have to have a partnership long out in advance of that, and then finally it comes to be. So work gives me plenty of opportunities. Even the family gives me plenty of opportunities still, because our kids, your kids are always your kids, and
Yes.
even though they might not have 4 soccer games and 3 whatevers,
Yeah.
there's still plenty to do there, and still staying engaged. So that's what I would say. Those are things that the fourth quarter looks like. It's letting go of things. It's still signing each day. It's not letting stereotypes of what the fourth quarter look like. They keep you from doing things differently. And it's about giving back and preparing those who will be here after you're in your overtime. So anyway, that's how I'd answer that.
Wow. I really like that comment, signing each day.
Isn't that fabulous?
Yeah, it has so much depth to it.
Because it's moment by moment, right? You can't plan for that. You have to sign each day according to what it provides you. It gives you an opportunity to do.
Well, I'm experiencing that my body is changing as I get older. And so what are you doing to stay healthy and to make sure that maintain? What are some of the things that you do health wise?
So everything is an acronym with me, right? So I love to dance. So while Eric's stuff is all about sports, I've always danced all my life. My first experience, and I like to be on stage, I think, as a kid, so dancing and theater. And so my first experience with the stage was a hula hoop thing in the grocery store. And I was hula hooping, and everybody was watching and giving me applause. I learned how much I liked music and movement. And so, but I never knew it was called that, and so then I danced as a kid, and I danced even in my second half, mainly jazz. I'm kind of into the ground jazz kind of thing, not up in ballet. There's nothing svelte about me. Right? and so I'm jazzing into the ground. And so a couple of years ago, I said, I'm going to ask everybody their favorite music. And every morning I'm going to put it on my little Spotify, and I'm going to do my workout and exercise and dance. And I call it music and movement. So everybody was feeding me all their best music. So I have a Spotify that's to die for. My likes are fabulous. And so I have probably 100 likes. And so I can put them on, and I move. The dog comes in the back with me, and I sit there and do my core. My core is really important at this age, and then of course aerobics. And so right now my dance is I'm learning East Coast swing. And so every song that comes on Spotify, I figure out how I can do East Coast swing to it. And so, I'm always kind of making up a little routine. That's the aerobic part of it. And then the rest is core. And so every day I have a whole cadre of music, and I have a whole cadre of movement and exercise. And I do it regularly, and I'm inspired because I love the music. And the dog comes back, and he can't wait. And if I don't go back there, he keeps after me. It's kind of like, when are you coming? When are you coming? And so I follow him back there. He's happy. He goes and lays down, and he knows when I turn off my speaker and Spotify, he's out of there because I'm out of there. So keeping moving. I love to dance. Dance, walk, and core would be the in terms of physical. And then mental, it's about reading. I learned to read at 50, I say, because I didn't know I was dyslexic. And so reading words is really kind of tough. I could do it when I push, but that's not my strength. And so when finally the iPods came and all of this, I was turned on to audiobooks, and now I can't get enough books in my brain. They just pour in, because dyslexic people can listen and learn and read. And so I learned that was the way into my brain with books. And so reading always allows me to reframe. And that's the mental piece. I work, my family, and I try to keep music and movement. And I journal. My gratitude journal. That was one of the things that was in the book.
Yeah.
And so I started a gratitude journal, and you are online. I think I wrote it down. What line was it on? Anyway, so you were in the gratitude journal this morning, and I'm up to 25,592.
Word count.
Every day I write gratitude, who I'm grateful for. And so there's usually four to 8 entries each morning of gratitude, and that allows me to let them go, ponder and let it go. And so I've gone through multiple journals. I don't write a lot about it. I just enter. So I'm up to over 25,000 entries of things I've been.
Oh my God. So when did you start?
I started that in 2011.
Oh my God. That's good. I'm listening to what you're telling me, and I have other people in my life that are in the fourth quarter, and I'm very happy for you because I can see you dancing with music in the back room, and I'm just picturing that. And you're saying that, oh, I'm going out there and I'm doing mental, and I'm doing my core, and I'm working out, and I'm having movement. But in that, there's a happy energy. I'm sure you're laughing and smiling, and the energy behind it is just so big, it's so big. And the dog likes it. The dog likes it. He enjoys it. And I know what you're saying. We have dogs. They do look at you like, okay, it's time for me. So I totally get it. And so I'm very happy for you because traditionally, you are supposed to stop working, retire, go home and start sitting in a chair, I guess, and watching Young and the Restless. I don't know. Price is Right. I don't know what it was. But you are still moving around and enjoying life, and you're living it to the fullest, and you're signing each day. You're signing each day.
And I would say fullest looks different when you're in your fourth quarter. I would say I engage, because engaging allows it to look differently. Full looks differently, because full might not be the same intensity, but full engaging allows it also to be sad, because it's not always some days I have this more of a Gregorian chant thing going on that's real mellow, because I'm not there. I'm not into it's not always about joy. Right. And so, I'm not fabricating when I feel. I'm embracing, I'm walking into it, whatever it is. I'm not going to fight it. I'm going to engage and embrace. And some days I'm learning how to inhabit my feelings, and not by being an optimist. Sometimes you ignore your feelings and you say, I've got to push forward. Not healthy in fourth quarter. And so you've got to eventually inhabit and allow all feelings to have a presence. And that is so important in the fourth quarter. I just think it's important. It's back to equanimity. You know, it will be up and it will be down. You can't just push through something anymore. You could push through in the second quarter. You could push through in the third quarter.
Hmm.
Can't push through
What
it.
do you think changes that to where you were able to do that early on, but then now, what do you
I
think?
thought you meant physically. I was going to tell you my
No.
telomeres are shorter. My
No.
telomeres, I don't make as many cells anymore. That's the scientific answer of aging. um, it always has to do with spiritual core. Always. It's bigger than me. It doesn't, it's kind of like get over yourself isn't the same as Eric's. It's more of, it's bigger. It's just bigger, and embracing that it's bigger.
Hmm. Well, it goes in line with his, he has his mantra of get over yourself, but then the other mantra is always making the mission bigger than yourself.
Exactly. That's back to his thing. Remember? That's what I loved about his book. It was like, okay, now I understand Eric. It must be a challenge to be the spouse of Eric.
Well, you know what? It's funny you said you read his book. I read when he first took the term of branding as portfolio entrepreneur, he gave me a research paper and he's like, this is, you need to read this. This is, you know, this is great information. It's head on. And so it was a research paper all about the difference between serial entrepreneur and portfolio entrepreneur. And when I read that paper, it was probably about a 20-page paper. But when I read it, I've been married to this man for 23 years, but that paper described him to the complete T. Like, and it's so funny because I read it and I came to him and I said, I finally know who you are.
Well, you know, and I kept calling him a serial entrepreneur, and he kept correcting me to portfolio, and I
Yeah, it's a
wasn't paying
complete
attention.
difference.
Yeah, and
Complete
now
difference.
when finally about 2 meetings ago, when he corrected me for the 80th time, I said I paid attention, and I said, "Oh, okay." And so I get it now, and it fits. It is him, because it's about everybody moving. It's about the team moving forward. It doesn't matter which one of you has the ball, you know. So I agree, and that's funny that you finally got it, and I finally get that about him too. But my bigger aha was definitely it's about the infrastructure he put in place for each quarter for him. I mean, it's a discipline almost. It's a way of belief, but it's also a discipline. You can believe it, but if you don't do anything, it doesn't matter.
Yep, yep, yep.
Yep.
So I think I want to close with asking you if, and I think this is more beneficial, going, and you kind of hit on it a little bit, what would you tell an individual going into this fourth quarter in regards to preparation, mindset wise, the shift?
Dance with it.
Dance with it.
If you are truly a dancer, now I'm going to pull on a dance analogy.
But I love it. I love it.
You have to, I've written my epitaph reading, and it's called The Last Dance.
Mm-hmm.
And it has 3 names. The Last Dance, there's no such thing as a solo, you know, and it talks about, you hear the music inside out, and out of that music comes a dance, and you move with it. And when you truly are aligned with the music and the movement, you are, now I'll get, you are at one. You are at one. And so the fourth quarter, that's what it's all about. Getting closer and closer to everything comes together. It's all one. It's one energy. I've gone metaphysical on you. I'm sorry.
No. But
anyway.
I completely get what you're saying, and I believe that the audience will appreciate it. That it was dance with it. You have to be in rhythm. You have to feel the music. You have to
Sometimes you
understand
lead,
your next move.
sometimes you lead, sometimes you follow.
Right.
And even when you're doing a solo, you're dancing with the universe. I'll send you the little poem. It's only like it's like a haiku or something. It's very short. But that's what I would say. Where my friends was sign each day, I always have a tune in my heart. And you have to make sure you still can hear it in the fourth quarter.
Oh my, that's beautiful, Marie. That's super beautiful. I did want to let you know that, and I'm sure you can relate, during this whole process of entrepreneurship and meeting people, connecting, the world has changed a lot. And so when people connect, a lot of times it's not really a true connect. And
Right.
when you're doing some of the things that Eric is doing, that we're doing, and what you're doing, you never know who's really in your corner. You don't know who you can trust, and sometimes people around you, they almost look at you as if you're not even human because you're able to take on so much. And so they forget that you have feelings. This entrepreneur has feelings, that you have challenges, you have all of these things, the same things as others. And I absolutely, like, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate you, because I know that you are truly a friend to Eric, and I absolutely love it.
And to you.
Yes,
And to
I
you,
know,
my
I know.
friend.
I know you are, but when I hear you guys on the phone, it's a conversation, and you guys understand each other. You understand the language. You've been doing the same things. But you also have a moment during your conversations where you're able to take it and talk about self. And you are sharing these lessons, dance, learn to dance with yourself and different things like that. And I'm completely grateful that he has at least one person that I know for sure, he
we
can
we've
call,
got one
and that,
another's back. I
yeah.
hope someday I can hold an umbrella
No,
over
but
him.
as you go, the numbers decrease. So you have been that person, and we're just so thankful for that. We really are honored.
Oh my God. What a compliment. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to know you both,
Mhm.
and you've made such a difference. And as it relates to the message of the book, I really do want to suggest that people pause and read it. I mean, it's worth it. And more importantly, even having an opportunity to talk about this today, I can think of a few people I need to pass it on and have this conversation with. So thank you so much for asking my opinion and for interviewing me today. And may we still dance together.
Yes. Thank
Enough of this
you.
sentimentality.
Oh, yes, definitely. Thank you again for being here. And I think people will really enjoy this conversation.
Good. And may everybody East Coast swing tonight. All right. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you for tuning in to the Get Over Yourself podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you like what you heard, please consider liking and subscribing to our channel to stay updated on future episodes. You can also connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn for more exclusive content, behind-the-scenes insights, and community engagement. Your support means the world to us. Until next time, happy listening. And remember, get over yourself.